ago on Norwalk Boulevard went into southbound lanes. Now, we don't believe anybody's been hit. There's been no crash, but certainly this is an extremely dangerous situation with an erratic driver who appears to be desperate. 2 on board, according to reports from L.A. County Sheriff's deputies. We believe it started in Buena Park as a stolen vehicle, that red Honda Civic with paper plates. They may do a pit maneuver here if he slows down just enough. I believe this is northbound on Norwalk Boulevard at Washington. If I'm not mistaken, you see a right turn was just made. Could be an opportunity for the pit maneuver, and there it is. The vehicle spinning out. They should be able to lock it in and get this individual into custody. But a dicey situation immediately after something like this ends when they don't know if these 2 individuals could be armed. But they are approaching the vehicle. It looks like they're trying to open the door and get the individuals out. We hope this doesn't go to a standoff where the shots have to be fired. But if officers appear that their lives are in danger, that could possibly happen. It looks like for the moment, though, the vehicle's stranded. I believe, if I can get confirmation from Jay, it's Washington Boulevard. They ended up on just east of Norwalk Boulevard. Yeah, he's telling me that is correct. And it was a textbook pit maneuver that spun this vehicle around in a situation where you have to be careful because you didn't want it to go across the street into oncoming traffic there on Washington. But right now it's static. It looks like they're just trying to get the 2 individuals inside the vehicle out.
Well, Scott, we saw the one officer right by the driver's side, and then another officer stepped beside, pulled that officer back to further safety. Can you see inside as far as why they would do that? Are they unable to get out, or are they showing any kind of activity in there?
I believe it has to be the posture of those individuals inside there. I think, different departments treat some things differently. That one officer had his arm right up to the vehicle, and the other officer said, hey, maybe we should step back from this thing and let it play out. We don't want anyone to get hurt, and they don't know if they're armed. Obviously, these individuals are not following the direction of the police officers right now. They're telling them to get out of the vehicle. They're telling them to throw out the keys. They're telling them to keep their hands up. Don't make any quick movements, those types of things. And if they were obeying the orders of the officers, they'd be able to get out the passenger side door. But that is not the case. So right now we have a standoff, and it looks they're waiting for more officers to respond to the scene, probably to get in front of the vehicle a little bit more so that it can't take off. Maybe they'll get canine in here. Maybe they could shoot a gas canister inside the vehicle if they won't comply. But it can be a dicey situation when you have 2 individuals inside a car. You don't know if they're armed, and they're not obeying commands. They're not coming out. It can put officers' lives in risk to just rush up to the vehicle if one of those individuals were armed.
Yes, and we see the officers surrounding that vehicle, trying to get into position with their guns drawn. And also on the passenger side, we see the person with his hands up, but not in the official way that you're supposed to surrender. Can we tell if they're men or women in this car, Scott?
Sometimes your shot's a lot better than mine with the glare and the helicopter. We'll go in tight, Jamie, as tight as we possibly can, possibly on the doubler there. And I really can't tell from this angle if they're men. I think the initial reports were that it was 2 men, but that was not confirmed. Once again, this red Honda Civic out of Buena Park, that's where it's all started. Stolen vehicle. We think it happened, started the pursuit around 7:15, and it all ended right here on Washington, just to the east side of Norwalk Boulevard. I believe this is on the border of Santa Fe Springs and Whittier, and we have multiple agencies right now, but there's no movement inside the vehicle, and that would tell me these individuals just are not complying with the officer's demands. They could get out of that passenger side without problem. They could throw their keys out. They could do lots of things to put the officers at ease, but they are not at this time.
Well, Scott, from your perspective, there's nobody in front of the car, but I see that curb. So do you feel like officers believe that the car's disabled, or is it just there's nowhere for them to go? Because it does seem like that would be still a risky situation for the officers in that he could potentially drive forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've got the corner of their vehicle wedged up pretty tight against that car, but that doesn't mean that the car couldn't pull away. As far as how badly it's damaged, it's difficult to tell. It looks to me like they could probably still start it and take off, so that may be a concern of officers. Also, once officers get in line with a vehicle like this, and they could have to open fire if the suspect's got out with a gun, there's always that crossfire situation. They don't want to be shooting in a direction where you might be hitting someone in the oncoming traffic or a pedestrian or some innocent person. person. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. It appears to me, just like it appears to you, that if the individual tried to start the car and get going, they might be able to take off. So I'm certain the officers are looking into that as well. Come out to a wide shot. I can't see out my window, but they may be shutting down traffic on the other side and then trying to get an officer in there. They may hop over and put a vehicle in front of him so he can't take off. So they've shut down the street, as you can tell on the right side of your screen. They're not letting anyone down this way to get in their way as far as the situation is concerned. And I'd expect they'll probably get a vehicle in front of that Honda here in a moment as well.
Yeah, I would expect, because they certainly do have a traffic on the other side right there. Scott, we were able to catch this at the end of the pursuit when they made the pit maneuver. What was happening up until this pursuit? He went on the wrong side of the road and he was in excess speeds?
Absolutely, traveling extremely erratically, extremely dangerously, and desperate, if you will. Traveling through the surface streets a lot down in the Downey area, in Norwalk, onto the 5 freeway for a moment. Once again, originally out of Buena Park, which is north of here, and then getting on the 5 south off an Imperial Highway onto a couple of surface streets, traveling at extremely high rate of speed, extremely dangerously, and then even going into oncoming traffic to try and get away from police. So it's a desperate individual or individuals who did not want to be caught. They came around the corner and they did a textbook, the police did. I'm trying to read those vehicles. Jay might help me. I don't know if that's Buena Park Police that did that. It looks like it is a textbook maneuver. Yeah, even though we're not in Buena Park, we're several miles south, they followed and continued on the pursuit with LA County Sheriff assisting, but it was a perfect pit maneuver. You've got to worry about the pit maneuver, and the vehicle might go across that divider you see there and then into oncoming traffic. That's always a concern, but the vehicle slowed down enough so they could do it. It spun around. They were able to get their car locked up against it, so it looks like there's some movement inside the vehicle, not a whole lot, but it appears to me from what we're seeing that if the suspects were getting orders from police, they would be able to get out of the vehicle slowly, and it doesn't appear to me that they are obeying the officer's demands. Certainly right now they're giving them commands, and we don't see much in the way of movement.
There were a couple of times, Scott, where you could kind of see the people, like especially the passenger side, and again, you've said your monitor is small. You can see the person on the passenger side, it appears, with his hands up. The troubling part to me continues to be one of the things you mentioned a moment ago is the traffic in the opposite direction is still pretty heavy. And so you have a lot of people who are adjacent to this heavy police presence and very active, dangerous crime scene.
Yeah, you can see the officers moved away so that in the line of sight they're shooting on what we say due to east here. He was eastbound on Washington Boulevard. So their bullets are going to fly not in the direction of that traffic. You can see the two officers with guns drawn are looking straight into the driver's side of the car there. So they are very cognitive of that fact. I would believe they're going to shut down Washington again. You see the officers waving. They're trying to get traffic out of there. They realize the potential danger in a situation like this, and they're trying to keep the public safe first and foremost. We know that more vehicles are en route to this location, more patrol cars to surround this and maybe shut down that street.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why they're not moving in at this point, because of the traffic on the opposite side?
It's hard to say. I think I don't see any traffic now. So in our left part of our scene there, or our picture, I think what we're going to see is they've shut down the street. And, officers aren't always that eager to go right in front of that vehicle either, because it puts them in the line of sight if they were to fire on them. So that can be a concern as well. They may know more about this than we do. You see the LA County Sheriff's helicopter overhead. They may know that these individuals are armed. We don't know. And now you see where the position of the officers is. They've moved over because they know that if they do fire on the vehicle, there aren't any vehicles coming westbound on the street for them to hit, so that their line of fire is actually a little better for them now. Before, they weren't behind the patrol car on the top of your screen, and that's all because of the line of fire and what could be in the way. And now it looks like we have some activity here. Looks like the passenger is starting to get out of the car.
Yeah, and maybe they were exactly what you were saying, Scott. Maybe there was communication with them, and they were just waiting for an opportunity to close down traffic. That does look like we have a woman that is walking back. And again, from the beginning, it did appear as if the passenger, at least, was trying to keep her hands up. So, I mean, we don't know because we're not hearing it, but it is possible that they were talking to these people and they were just waiting to get traffic down in the other way, just in case, right? I mean, you want to take an abundance of caution here.
Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. Maybe they were complying for the most part, and the police just wanted to wait to make the situation more safe before they got them out of the vehicle. So as a female, she's been detained. She followed their orders. She backed up to them. She laid down. That's the procedure. Now it looks like they're just waiting for the driver. We don't know if it's a male or female. It looks like we're hearing it is a male. The driver's a male, according to the police department or the sheriff's department. And now we're just going to have to see if that individual also gives himself up peacefully.
I mean, I suppose there is the potential that this was a domestic violence hostage type of situation. Maybe maybe you don't want to speculate too much, but I guess we'll find out here in short order if this person goes ahead and comes out of there. We really don't know anything about the people in there other than this started as a report of a stolen car with those paper plates that you see there. It is a Honda. And again, you mentioned it, Scott, started in Buena Park, and what little we saw of it live here, it was certainly an aggressive driver. As we let you continue the scene, we see the pit maneuver on the right side of the screen where Buena Park police finally stopped this pursuit, and then we've gotten to this standoff right now.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned, the possibilities are what makes policing so hard. I mean, it could be, we could speculate all day and we probably wouldn't get it right because there's so many different types of scenarios that could play out here. And you're probably absolutely right about them shutting down the street before they actually moved in. It does look to me like if the vehicle or the driver wanted to drive off in the vehicle, that if it could start, that they more than likely could. If they did throw the keys out, we didn't see that. And now it's just a waiting game. It's a standoff, and it looks like, I don't know if you see the same thing as me, but it looks like the driver, the suspect, is trying to put his hands up, and now it looks like he's more kind of arguing with them. That wouldn't be the type of motion you would see from someone who's been told, don't move your hands, keep your hands up, don't plead your case, just get out of the vehicle.
He is,
definitely seems to be gesturing and talking and leaning back in the seat there, shaking his arms.
Yeah.
Don't know what that's about, but hopefully they can talk some sense into him.
Yeah, and there's no reason why the person couldn't get out the passenger side door. Clearly the driver's side door is pinned shut, but this is, you don't want to say the ravings of a lunatic, but you certainly see him waving his arms, clearly talking to police, and as you said, Scott, they don't want to hear it right now. Get out of the vehicle and follow their commands. It's really, at that point, it's that simple.
It's very simple, and when you've got, half a dozen guns pointed at you, and you don't, follow their commands, I mean, it lets the officers know what they're dealing with. They're not dealing with someone who's, operating under their full capacity, because if you really want to live, and an officer, several of them with guns pointed at you, tell you to do something, you would think the right thing to do would be just obey their orders. So here they're moving in, so it looks like they're not too worried about what the individual's going to do. He's keeping his hands up. It seems like they feel free to move into the vehicle.
Well, there's the possibility they talked to his passenger, and if his passenger gave them some information as to, we don't have any weapons, there is that possibility that maybe that's why they're...
Now he's reaching somewhere, and they are right on him.
Boy, it's a frightening situation, isn't it, to look at this, because we do know that one wrong move, the officers get scared, they fear for their life, they're going to fire. I mean, it's an unfortunate dynamic of what happens in these types of situations. Right. It looks like everything is going as planned, but all it takes is, one really bad move on the part of the suspect, and the officers are in a real tough situation.
Okay, he's climbing over, arms out the window.
Up,
yeah, looking good here as far as the posture of the suspect. We do understand he's a man. His hands are up. Probably be told to back up to officers, to turn around, to put his hands up, and then to back up towards the patrol car. That's usually the procedure. Maybe pick up his shirt to make sure that he doesn't have a weapon inside his waistband there. But it looks like hands behind the head. Looks like a young adult male. And following the orders of the officers at this point. I'm pretty sure we're on Washington, just to the east side of Norwalk Boulevard. It's right on the border of Santa Fe Springs and Norwalk, if I'm not mistaken.
And he still seems to be talking to officers as he appears to be following their orders right now, but...
I think what you said is perfect. He's still talking, and I think this is an example of what police are facing so many times where we don't see it. This person just is wanting to say something, and probably not appreciating where the officers are coming from, as you can imagine. I mean, you can't know if this person is armed or not. They've already shown a willingness to put other people at risk with the kind of driving they've had. So it's frustrating, I'm sure, for a lot of people in that area as this kind of plays out, and they're just trying to go about their workday, but they can't because streets are closed. And
this is a tense moment right here. They're getting ready to put him into handcuffs, but he's got to do exactly what they say before they rush up on him. He looks like he's complying. Still talking. Last bits of freedom. Yeah. He wants to get out what he has to say, I guess.
Yeah, and it's interesting because usually you see a suspect that will obey a little bit quicker than this. This has taken some time, but it appears that everything has gone as planned as far as the operation of the police officer is concerned. You do a picture-perfect pit maneuver, you get the passenger out without incident, and now you get the suspect, the driver, out without incident, and that's certainly what everybody wanted. Pit maneuvers can be tricky because, you know, this was in an area where if that vehicle would have spun out, it could have went into oncoming traffic, but as I mentioned, the suspect slowed down to a rate that allowed them to do it. Buena Park Police did it what seemed to be perfectly, and now fortunately we have both suspects, or one suspect and the other individual, we're not certain, the woman that was the passenger, in custody at this point. And usually these things can wind down pretty quick when there's not another car involved. They can usually get that vehicle, the suspect vehicle, off to the shoulder and open up traffic so people can get through, and I'm certain they'll do that in this case as well. We don't think there was any accidents. Once again, if you're just joining us, this started in Buena Park as a stolen vehicle, that red Honda Civic. That now is the driver. He is in custody with Buena Park Police, and this is on Washington, just to the east side of Norwalk Boulevard in Santa Fe Springs.
Okay, Scott, thank you very much. If there are any developments on this that we need to provide as updates, we will do that. Make sure you're watching on Eyewitness News at 11 a.m. This has been special coverage of this pursuit that has now ended in Whittier. We'll continue with Good Morning America.
On Norwalk Boulevard at Washington, if I'm not mistaken, you see a right turn was just made. Could be an opportunity for the pit maneuver, and there it is, the vehicle spinning out. They should be able to lock it in and get this individual into custody. But a dicey situation immediately after something like this ends, when they don't know if these two individuals could be armed. But they are approaching the vehicle. It looks like they're trying to open the door and get the individuals out. We hope this doesn't go to a standoff where the shots have to be fired. But if officers appear that their lives are in danger, that could possibly happen. It looks like for the moment, though, the vehicle's stranded. I believe, I can get confirmation from Jay, it's Washington Boulevard. They ended up on just east of Norwalk Boulevard. Yeah, he's telling me that is correct. And it was a textbook pit maneuver that spun this vehicle around in a situation where you have to be careful because you didn't want it to go across.
Showing any kind of activity in there?
I believe it has to be the posture of those individuals inside there. I think, different departments treat some things differently. That one officer had his arm right up to the vehicle, and the other officer said, hey, maybe we should step back from this thing and let it play out. We don't want anyone to get hurt, and they don't know if they're armed. Obviously, these individuals are not following the direction of the police officers. To go on Norwalk Boulevard, went into southbound lanes. Now, we don't believe anybody's been hit. There's been no crash, but certainly this is an extremely dangerous situation with an erratic driver who appears to be desperate. Two on board, according to reports from LA County Sheriff's deputies. We believe it started in Buena Park as a stolen vehicle, that red Honda Civic with paper plates. They may do a pit maneuver here if he slows down just enough. I believe this is northbound street into oncoming traffic there on Washington, but right now it's static. It looks like they're just trying to get the two individuals inside the vehicle out.
Well, Scott, we saw the one officer right by the driver's side, and then another officer stepped beside, pulled that officer back to further safety. Can you see inside as far as why they would do that? Are they unable to get out, or are they